The gleaming white halls of the International Space Station's new diplomatic wing reflected the gravity of the occasion. It was humanity's first formal meeting with the Brightfin, an advanced alien species that had made contact 6 months ago. The air felt thick with anticipation as both human and alien delegations prepared for the historic discussion. Ray Smith, Earth's chief diplomat, watched the tall, silver-skinned alien ambassador carefully. Something seemed off about Blue, the Brightfin representative. While other Brightfin delegates stood straight and moved with fluid grace, Blue's movements appeared slightly jerky, almost hesitant. As we discussed the terms of our species' cooperation, Blue was saying, their translator converting musical tones into clear English, we must consider the exchange of. They paused, placing a long-fingered hand against their chest. A faint sheen of moisture appeared on their silvery skin. Ray leaned forward, his decades of diplomatic experience triggering warning bells in his mind. Ambassador Blue, are you feeling well? The other Brightfin delegates turned their attention to their leader. Blue waved off their concern with their secondary arm. It is nothing. A minor discomfort. Please, let us continue The words died in their throat as Blue suddenly stumbled. Their silver skin took on a dull grayish tone. The Brightfin's personal medical officer rushed forward, pulling out a small scanning device. Emergency. The medical officer called out in their musical language, the translator struggling to keep up. Internal rupture of the secondary heart system. We need immediate evacuation. The human medical team stationed at the diplomatic wing sprang into action, but the Brightfin officers held up their hands. No, their medical chief said firmly. Your primitive methods would only cause more harm. We must return to our ship. Ray watched in growing concern as Blue's condition deteriorated rapidly. The proud ambassador now lay curled on the floor, their silver skin turning darker by the minute. The Brightfin medical team worked frantically with their advanced devices, but nothing seemed to help. Our regeneration technology cannot repair damage this severe while the rupture continues, one Brightfin medic explained, their musical voice filled with despair. The internal bleeding is too extensive. The damage is spreading to neighboring systems. Let us help, offered Dr. Lisa West, the human medical officer on duty. We have extensive experience with emergency surgery. The Brightfin medical chief looked horrified. Surgery? You want to cut open the ambassador? Such primitive brutality would kill them instantly. Your regeneration technology isn't working, Ray pointed out diplomatically. Perhaps it's time to consider alternatives. The Brightfin medics huddled together, speaking in rapid, high-pitched tones that the translator couldn't follow. Meanwhile, Blue's condition continued to worsen. Their once bright eyes had grown dim, and their breathing came in sharp, irregular gasps. The ambassador will not survive another solar cycle, the Brightfin medical chief finally announced, their voice heavy with resignation. The damage is too severe for our methods to repair. Ray stepped forward. Then you have nothing to lose by letting us try. We can have our best xenosurgical team here within the hour. The Brightfin officials looked at each other, their large eyes reflecting their internal struggle. Their species had long since moved past what they considered primitive cutting medicine, relying instead on advanced cellular regeneration. But now, faced with the imminent death of their ambassador, they found themselves considering the unthinkable. A weak musical tone drew everyone's attention. Blue, barely conscious, raised one trembling hand. The translator caught their fading words. I accept the human's offer. The declaration sent both delegations into a flurry of activity. Ray immediately contacted the Global Medical Center, while the Brightfin medical team began sharing their biological data with the human doctors. As Ray watched the organized chaos unfold around him, he couldn't help but wonder if this crisis might lead to something greater than any diplomatic agreement could have achieved. Sometimes, he reflected, the strongest bonds between species were forged not in conference rooms, but in moments of desperate need. Dr. James Miller arrived at the International Space Station with his emergency medical team exactly 47 minutes after receiving the urgent call. His weathered face showed no signs of the anxiety he felt about performing surgery on an entirely new species. Instead, his calm demeanor seemed to reassure both the humans and Brightfin around him. The medical bay had been quickly converted into a makeshift operating room. Blue lay on the specially adjusted medical bed, their silver skin now a dark, unhealthy gray. Various Brightfin devices blinked and hummed around them, but none seemed to be making any difference. "Tell me everything," Dr. Miller said as he studied the alien medical readouts. The Brightfin medical chief, a tall figure named Shine, stepped forward reluctantly. "The ambassador's secondary cardiovascular system has suffered a major rupture," Shine explained through the translator. "Our regeneration technology cannot keep up with the tissue breakdown. In our entire medical history, we have never needed to cut into a patient." The last words were spoken with obvious distaste. Dr. Miller nodded, his eyes never leaving the patient. "I understand your concerns about surgery, but sometimes the old ways are the best ways. We've been perfecting surgical techniques for centuries." He pulled up a holographic display showing human surgical procedures. "Look here, we can use minimally invasive techniques, small incisions, robotic assistance, real-time imaging. It's not the crude cutting you're imagining." The Brightfin medical team gathered around the display, their large eyes widening as they watched the precise, careful movements of modern human surgery. But Shine still looked unconvinced. "And what of infection? Of bleeding? Our bodies are not designed to be opened. We have ways to handle those concerns," Dr. Miller explained patiently. He gestured to his team, who were already setting up their equipment. "Advanced sterilization fields, synthetic blood replacements, tissue sealants. We've even brought experimental nanobots that can help control bleeding." A sudden alarm from one of the Brightfin devices cut through the discussion. Blue's vital signs were dropping rapidly. The ambassador's musical voice had become a weak whisper, barely picked up by the translator. "So cold." Dr. Miller's voice took on an urgent edge. "We're running out of time. I need your permission to operate, and I need it now. More importantly, I need your help. You know your people's anatomy better than anyone. Work with me. Let's save them together." The Brightfin medical team looked at each other, their silver skin reflecting the emergency lights. Finally, Shine stepped forward. "Our ambassador will die without intervention. We accept your offer." "Good." Dr. Miller immediately switched into action mode. "First, I need complete anatomical data. Show me exactly where the rupture is and what we need to avoid." The next few minutes were a flurry of activity. The Brightfin medical team shared their detailed biological scans, while Dr. Miller's team prepared their equipment. Human and alien medical knowledge began to merge as they worked together to save Blue's life. "The secondary heart system is unlike anything we've seen," Dr. Miller murmured as he studied the scans. "But the principles should be similar. We can do this." He turned to address both human and Brightfin medical teams. "Everyone, listen carefully. What we're about to do has never been done before. We're going to combine our surgical techniques with Brightfin biological knowledge. It won't be easy, but together, we can save the ambassador's life." Looking at the determined faces around him, both human and alien, Dr. Miller felt a surge of confidence. This was why he had become a doctor, to help others, no matter who or what they might be. As his team began their final preparations, he knew they were about to make medical history. Whether that history would be a success or a tragic failure remained to be seen. Dr. Miller stood over the complex three-dimensional hologram of Blue's internal organs, his forehead creased in concentration. The alien anatomy before him was both fascinating and alarming. While some structures seemed vaguely familiar, others were completely foreign to human medical knowledge. "The rupture is spreading," Shine reported, pointing to a pulsing red area in the hologram. "The secondary heart system connects to these major vessels, but they're arranged in a spiral pattern we cannot repair with regeneration technology." Dr. Miller's team worked quickly around him, adapting their surgical tools for alien biology. The standard medical instruments wouldn't work on Brightfin physiology. Their skin was too dense, their blood vessels too uniquely arranged. "Look at this," said Dr. Miller, pointing to a cluster of smaller vessels. "These remind me of human capillaries, but they're arranged in a hexagonal pattern. We'll need to modify our approach." He turned to his assistant. "Get me the 3D printer. We need custom tools, and we need them now." The medical bay hummed with activity as human technology merged with alien knowledge. The 3D printer whirred to life, creating specialized surgical tools designed on the spot to work with Brightfin anatomy. Every minute counted as Blue's condition continued to deteriorate. "Their temperature is dropping," one of the Brightfin medics called out. "The blood replacement system is failing." Dr. Miller studied the real-time scans, his mind racing through possible solutions. "The bleeding is worse than we thought. The spiral vessels are collapsing inward. We need to approach this from a different angle." He pointed to a section of the hologram. "See how these vessels twist. We can't use our standard techniques. But if we combine our synthetic blood with your regeneration technology," he looked at Shine, "could your devices focus on rebuilding the tissue if we stop the bleeding first?" Shine's large eyes widened. "It might work, but the precision required to seal those vessels without damaging them further. That's where human surgical skill comes in," Dr. Miller said firmly. "We've been practicing microsurgery for decades. Your regeneration technology is amazing, but sometimes you need a more direct approach." The human medical team worked rapidly to prepare the hybrid procedure. They loaded synthetic blood substitutes into specialized dispensers while calibrating their surgical robots for the unique challenge ahead. The Brightfin medical team, though still obviously uncomfortable with the idea of surgery, began adjusting their regeneration devices to work in conjunction with the human equipment. "There's something else," Shine said suddenly, pointing to a new area of concern in the hologram. "These nodes along the vessel walls. They're like nothing in your medical database. They regulate our blood flow through biological electricity." Dr. Miller nodded grimly. "Like a biological pacemaker system. We'll need to avoid damaging them during the procedure." He turned to his team. "Adjust the electromagnetic shields on the surgical tools. We can't risk interfering with their natural electrical fields." Time was running out. Blue's vital signs continued to weaken, and the rupture was spreading faster than anyone had anticipated. The monitors showed cascading failure in multiple systems, each one threatening to doom the ambassador. "We're ready," Dr. Miller announced, looking at both human and Brightfin medical teams. "This won't be like any surgery you've seen before. We'll use our tools to stop the bleeding and repair the major damage. Then your regeneration technology can take over and heal the tissue properly." He looked at each face in the room, seeing determination mixed with anxiety. "This is going to work," he said firmly. "Not because we're using advanced technology, but because we're working together. Sometimes the biggest medical breakthroughs come from combining different approaches." As the team made their final preparations, Dr. Miller took a deep breath. They were about to attempt something never done before: human surgery on an alien patient whose biology they barely understood. The next few hours would either make medical history or end in tragedy. "Let's begin." The operating room fell silent as Dr. Miller made the first incision. The specially designed surgical laser cut through Blue's dense silver skin with perfect precision, leaving clean edges that wouldn't damage the sensitive tissue beneath. The Brightfin medical team watched in a mixture of horror and fascination. "Entry point successful," Dr. Miller announced calmly. "No signs of tissue damage. Deploying internal scanners now." Tiny robots, smaller than a grain of rice, entered through the incision. Their cameras sent back detailed images of Blue's internal injuries. The damage was even worse than they had feared. The spiral vessels had almost completely collapsed, and dark fluid was pooling in places it shouldn't be. "Look at that," Shine whispered, pointing to the medical display. "The internal damage. It's spreading faster than our scans showed." Dr. Miller nodded, his face set in concentration. "We need to move quickly, preparing microsutures for the primary rupture." His hands moved smoothly as he guided the robotic surgical tools through Blue's complex internal anatomy. Suddenly, one of the monitors began blaring an alarm. Blood pressure dropping. A Brightfin medic called out. The electrical nodes are failing. We're routing power to the biological circuit. Dr. Miller responded instantly. Shine, can your regeneration field stabilize the nodes? The Brightfin medical chief rushed to adjust their equipment. The air hummed with energy as alien technology worked to support the failing systems while human surgical tools continued their delicate work. There's the main rupture, Dr. Miller said, pointing to the surgical display. See how the vessel walls have torn in a spiral pattern. We need to seal it from both ends simultaneously. He looked at his team. Ready the synthetic tissue grafts. The next few minutes were intense as human and alien medical teams worked in perfect coordination. While Dr. Miller's surgical robots sealed the damaged vessels, Brightfin regeneration fields encouraged the tissue to accept the repairs. It was a dance of technology and technique that had never been attempted before. Wait, called out one of the human nurses. Something's wrong. The synthetic blood isn't flowing properly through the repaired section. Dr. Miller studied the readings quickly. The hexagonal pattern. It's rejecting our standard flow design. He thought for a moment, then turned to Shine. We need to pulse your regeneration field in time with their natural blood flow rhythm. Can you match it? Shine quickly adjusted their equipment, synchronizing it with Blue's unique circulatory pattern. Slowly, the synthetic blood began flowing properly through the repaired vessels. It's working, someone whispered, breaking the tense silence. But their relief was short-lived. New alarms began sounding as Blue's secondary organs started showing signs of stress. The ambassador's silver skin had taken on a dangerous dark shade. The other organs are failing, Shine reported urgently. They can't function without proper blood flow from the secondary heart system. Dr. Miller made a quick decision. We'll have to repair everything at once. Full spectrum approach. He looked at both teams. Humans, prepare all remaining synthetic grafts. Brightfin team, give me everything you've got with those regeneration fields. We're going to synchronize everything on my mark. The next 30 minutes were the most intense of Dr. Miller's long career. Human surgical precision worked side by side with alien healing technology in a desperate race against time. Every repair had to be perfect, every connection had to hold. Finally, after what seemed like hours, the last vessel was sealed. The synthetic blood flowed smoothly through Blue's repaired circulatory system, and the regeneration fields hummed steadily as they strengthened the repairs. Look, Shine said softly, pointing to the monitors. The tissue, it's accepting the repairs. The color is returning to normal. Dr. Miller allowed himself a small smile as he began the final phase of closing the surgical site. We did it, together. But even as the team began to feel relief, a new set of warning lights began flashing on the medical displays. The operation might have been successful, but Blue's recovery was far from certain. 3 days after the groundbreaking surgery, Dr. Miller stood beside Blue's recovery pod, studying the medical readouts with intense concentration. The ambassador's silver skin had slowly begun returning to its normal bright shade, but they still hadn't regained consciousness. The vital signs are improving, Shine said, moving to stand beside the human doctor. But I confess, I've never seen a recovery pattern like this before. Dr. Miller nodded, pointing to one of the displays. Look here, the synthetic grafts aren't just holding, they're actually integrating with the natural tissue. Your regeneration technology is adapting our repairs in ways we never expected. The recovery room had become an unofficial laboratory where human and Brightfin medical knowledge merge. Teams from both species worked together, documenting every aspect of Blue's unprecedented recovery. What had started as an emergency surgery was quickly becoming a revolutionary medical breakthrough. Doctor, one of the human nurses called out, "You need to see this." The medical teams gathered around a microscopic display showing Blue's tissue samples. The synthetic materials used in the surgery were not only being accepted by the alien biology, but were somehow enhancing the Brightfin's natural regenerative abilities. Impossible, whispered a Brightfin medic. The repair rate is 3 times faster than our most advanced regeneration treatments. Dr. Miller leaned closer to the display. It's the combination of techniques. Your regeneration technology is using our synthetic grafts as a framework to build new tissue. It's like giving your healing ability a scaffold to work with. A sudden change in the medical monitors drew everyone's attention. Blue's brainwave patterns were shifting, showing signs of returning consciousness. The room fell silent as the ambassador's eyes slowly opened. What? Blue's translator crackled to life, converting their weak musical tones to English. What happened? Shine stepped forward. Ambassador, you had a severe rupture in your secondary cardiovascular system. The human doctors, they saved your life. Blue's large eyes widened as they processed this information. Surgery. You've allowed them to perform surgery. Yes, Dr. Miller said, stepping into Blue's view. It was a close call, but by combining our surgical techniques with your people's regeneration technology, we were able to repair the damage. The ambassador tried to sit up, but Dr. Miller gently prevented the movement. Easy now. You're healing remarkably well, but you still need time to recover. Blue settled back, looking thoughtfully at their own medical readouts. I feel different, but not in an unpleasant way. The pain is gone, but there's a strange sensation where the repairs were made. That's normal, Dr. Miller assured them. Your body is integrating the synthetic materials we used. Actually, it's doing it better than we could have hoped. Your natural regenerative abilities are using our repairs to create something entirely new. The ambassador's gaze moved between the human and Brightfin medical teams. You worked together to save me. We did more than that, Shine said, their musical voice carrying a note of excitement. We may have discovered a whole new approach to medical treatment. The combination of human surgical techniques and our regeneration technology. It's producing results we never thought possible. Blue was quiet for a moment, processing this information. Then, to everyone's surprise, they began to laugh. A sound like tinkling crystal that the translator didn't even try to convert. Of course, the ambassador said finally. Of course it would be humans who would show us that sometimes going backward can be the best way to move forward. Dr. Miller smiled. Not backward, Ambassador, just a different path to the same goal. Healing those who need our help. As if to emphasize his words, the medical displays showed another surge of positive readings. Blue's recovery was progressing faster than either species had thought possible, and with each passing hour, they were learning more about how human and Brightfin medicine could work together. The emergency that had threatened to end in tragedy was instead becoming the beginning of a medical revolution, one that would change both species forever. 1 week after the surgery, the International Space Station's main conference room had been transformed into an impromptu medical classroom. Dr. Miller stood before a mixed audience of human and Brightfin medical professionals, explaining the history of human surgery using interactive holograms. We started with very basic tools, he said, showing an image of ancient medical instruments. Each generation learned from the last, improving our techniques bit by bit. We made many mistakes, but we learned from each one. The Brightfin doctors watched with growing interest as the display showed the evolution of human medical technology, from simple scalpels to modern surgical robots. Their earlier disgust at the idea of surgery had been replaced by genuine curiosity. But how did you overcome the fear? Asked one young Brightfin medic. The fear of cutting into living tissue. Dr. Miller smiled. We were afraid. We still are, in a way. But that fear makes us careful. It makes us precise. Sometimes, the most difficult paths lead to the best solutions. Blue, now fully recovered, sat at the front of the room. Their silver skin had regained its healthy shine, and the surgical site had healed without even a mark. Show them the scans from my surgery, they suggested. Let them see how your primitive methods worked with our advanced healing. The hologram changed to show detailed images of Blue's repaired cardiovascular system. The synthetic grafts had completely merged with the natural tissue, creating a hybrid structure that was stronger than the original. This is what happens when we combine our knowledge, Shine explained, stepping forward to join Dr. Miller. Human surgical precision provides a foundation that our regeneration technology can build upon. Together, they create something better than either could achieve alone. The audience murmured in excitement as Shine displayed new research data. We've already begun adapting human surgical techniques for other medical procedures. Problems we once thought unsolvable are now becoming manageable. Dr. Miller nodded. And we're learning just as much from you. Your understanding of cellular regeneration is helping us improve our own healing techniques. Already, our hospitals are testing new treatments based on your technology. A human doctor raised her hand. But what about the cultural barriers? Many Brightfins still view surgery as primitive. Blue answered this question. Views can change. I am living proof that sometimes the old ways have value. Besides, they added with a musical laugh, is it not primitive to reject a useful tool simply because it seems simple? The rest of the session turned into an energetic exchange of ideas. Human doctors shared their practical experience with difficult surgeries, while Brightfin medics explained the intricate workings of their regeneration technology. Each side found themselves amazed by the other's knowledge. Look at this, said a Brightfin scientist, displaying a new medical tool they had designed. It combines your surgical precision with our energy field technology. We believe it can repair damage that neither of our methods could fix alone. Dr. Miller examined the device with interest. And here's something we've developed, he responded, showing a new type of synthetic tissue. It's designed to work specifically with your regeneration fields, providing a stronger framework for healing. As the session continued, more ideas emerged. The medical teams began planning joint research projects, training programs, and new treatment protocols. What had started as an emergency surgery was growing into a full collaboration between two very different approaches to medicine. I never thought I would say this, Shine admitted quietly to Dr. Miller. But perhaps we became too focused on advancing forward. We forgot that sometimes the simple solutions are still valuable. Dr. Miller watched as human and Brightfin doctors worked together, sharing knowledge that would save countless lives in the future. The best path forward, he replied, is usually the one where we walk together. 1 year after the historic surgery that saved Ambassador Blue's life, the grand opening of the first Interstellar Medical Academy drew crowds of both humans and Brightfin to its gleaming new facilities on Earth. The building's architecture itself symbolized the merger of both cultures, sleek alien design combined with practical human engineering. Dr. Miller stood at the podium, looking out at the mixed audience before him. In the front row, Blue sat beside Shine, both of them wearing the new uniform of the Joint Medical Corps, a combination of traditional human medical white and the silvery sheen of Brightfin healing robes. A year ago, Dr. Miller began, we faced a crisis that could have ended in tragedy. Instead, it became the beginning of the greatest medical collaboration in human history. The large screens behind him showed images from that fateful day, including recordings of the groundbreaking surgery. What had once made the Brightfin cringe now drew interested murmurs from both species. Today, he continued, we open the doors to the future of medicine. In this academy, human surgeons will learn about Brightfin regeneration techniques, while Brightfin healers will study human surgical methods. Together, we will save lives in ways neither of our species could have managed alone. Blue stood up next, walking to the podium with the same fluid grace they had shown before their injury. My people once viewed surgery as primitive, they said, their translator carrying their musical voice across the hall. We thought we had moved beyond such methods. We were wrong. Sometimes the simplest solution is the best one, especially when combined with advanced technology. The ambassador gestured to their chest, where the surgery had been performed. I stand here today because humans were not afraid to use their hands, their tools, and their determination to save my life. And because my people were willing to learn that progress doesn't always mean leaving the old ways behind. Shine stepped forward next, activating a holographic display that filled the air above the audience. It showed a three-dimensional map of new medical centers being built across both human and Bryphon worlds. Already, Shine announced, our combined medical techniques have saved thousands of lives. Injuries and illnesses that were once fatal to my people can now be treated through surgical intervention, and human patients are recovering faster than ever thanks to our regeneration technology. The display shifted to show medical data, survival rates, recovery times, and success statistics that drew gasps from the audience. The results of combining both species' medical knowledge had exceeded everyone's expectations. Dr. Miller returned to the podium. But this is just the beginning. Today, we welcome our first class of students, both human and Bryphon, who will learn to combine the best of both our medical traditions. They will become a new kind of healer, one who knows when to cut and when to regenerate, when to act and when to wait. The doors at the back of the hall opened, and the first group of students entered, young humans and Bryphon walking side by side, each wearing the new combined uniform. Their faces showed excitement and determination as they took their places. From crisis comes opportunity, Blue said, rejoining Dr. Miller at the podium. From emergency comes innovation, and from two different approaches to healing comes a better way to save lives. As the ceremony concluded, Dr. Miller watched the students beginning to mingle, sharing ideas and forming friendships that would shape the future of medicine. He remembered that tense day in the space station's medical bay, when everything had seemed impossible. "You're smiling," Blue observed, coming to stand beside him. "I was just thinking," Dr. Miller replied. "Sometimes the best way to advance isn't to go forward or backward, but to reach out to each other instead." Blue's musical laugh filled the air. "Indeed, Doctor, and thanks to that wisdom, both our peoples will live longer, healthier lives." They looked out at the crowded hall. "This truly is the beginning of a new era in medicine." "No," Dr. Miller corrected gently. "It's the beginning of a new era for all of us."